Okay, it's ready.
Hi. Hi, welcome everyone to the Genie seminar. It is February the 18th, and we are, by our agreement, we're on the third of the 7+2 formula that will start with the recording by Brad Shepard, a professional speaker and actor and radio host who has done a wonderful job of recording these skills to make them available for easy listening. We've listened previously to the first most powerful secret love creation skill, emotional self-endorsement. And then we followed that with what I consider equivalent powerful love creation skill, which we call the reasonable best measure of self-worth. And now today's recording is an actual clinical example that illustrates the power of these simple skills to change people's lives. What I call the mind-freeing, life-changing, world-saving word changes that really enable us to think a newer way. As Einstein told us, we require a newer way of thinking. So let's listen to the film and see what we think.
Welcome to Strand number 29. Today's Strand offers a case study illustrating what I call our minimum daily requirement for approval, MDR. Most people...
It's not the right one?
No, I think Shara just started the wrong one here. So let's go back.
Sorry, 1 second. Just let me... This one.
There we go.
It's the same, it's the same video, Don.
Okay, sorry. Okay, maybe he was correct. I apologize.
Welcome to Strand number 29. Today's
Strand
offers a case study illustrating what I call our minimum daily requirement for approval, MDR. Most people are aware of the term minimum daily requirement because we see it on food and vitamin labels. One serving has 50% of the minimum daily requirement of vitamin C. Well, just as our body has minimum daily requirements of thyroid hormone and certain vitamins, we require a minimum daily dose of emotional satisfaction to sustain our mental vigor. Today, we are very aware of our physical need for food, vitamins, warmth, sunshine, etc. And we know where and how to get them. But few of us recognize that we have a minimum daily requirement for approval to sustain our enthusiasm or how to provide for those needs. Are you such a person? Caroline was having an especially difficult day. Before she left for work, her husband complained that she never showed any interest in his career. At the office, her boss rejected the proposal she put extra effort into, and her secretary quit, telling her she was impossible to work for. Caroline sat down at her desk, took a deep breath, closed her eyes. She pictured herself marching down Main Street, the VIP in a parade, a brass band playing. The most beautiful girl in the world marched behind her. Two young women dressed in colorful costumes walked along in front of her, carrying a banner that stretched across the street. The banner read, "Hurrah for Caroline." After a few minutes of engaging in her pick-me-up fantasy, Caroline returned to reality with renewed energy and enthusiasm. She took problem-solving actions. She put in a requisition for another secretary, phoned her husband, saying she wanted to discuss his complaint, and began revising her proposal. 6 months ago, if Caroline had been confronted with only one of the circumstances she found herself in, she would dwell on her shortcomings, mentally beat on herself, become depressed, and consider herself a failure. Now, she's able to look at criticisms from others objectively without putting herself down. Caroline came to see me because of her recurring bouts of depression and a variety of physical complaints, including headache, stomach queasiness, and insomnia. I soon discovered that Caroline's mental and emotional state was usually dependent on others' reactions to her. If people praised her or otherwise showed their approval, she felt good about herself and remained in a cheerful frame of mind. She seemed unable to cope with critical comments, however. Whether or not the criticisms were valid wasn't the issue. Because she didn't possess the skill of providing for her self-esteem, Caroline reacted to the criticism with a depression that was often incapacitating, causing her to stay in bed or lie down with a headache. Caroline was an intelligent young woman who was well informed about physical fitness and nutrition. It appeared to me that she pampered her flesh, but neglected and even abused her mental well-being. She obtained at least the MDR of her physical needs, such as vitamins and minerals. So one day I asked her if she paid any attention to emotional MDRs. No, she smiled weakly. I've never heard of such a thing. Could you imagine that just as your body has minimum needs for certain physical substances, your emotions also have daily requirements? I'm not sure what you're getting at. I'm saying that you can feel better about yourself and suffer far less from depression by taking responsibility for giving yourself your MDRs of emotional nutrition. What do you mean by MDRs of emotional nutrition? Your emotional MDR is the minimum daily requirement of positive feelings about yourself that you need each day to sustain your well-being. How can I give these MDRs to myself? By substituting positive statements for the negative, demoralizing statements you usually make about yourself. Look in the mirror first thing in the morning and tell yourself, I'm lovable, I'm a hot sketch, or sing about your accomplishments while you're in the shower. Walk proud as if you know you're somebody. Recognize and let go of self-pity, blaming, and what-if worrying. Use your newfound energy to develop an attitude of gratitude. Assign yourself a unit every time you think or say something positive about yourself until you reach, let's say, at least 10 a day. You can add up the units in a notebook or just do it mentally. Caroline was skeptical, but she agreed to try what I suggested. Like many depressed individuals, at first she had difficulty thinking of anything positive to say about herself. With a bit of effort, however, she began to list some qualities that led her to believe that she was just as worthwhile as anyone else. For instance, that she was friendly, neat, and a hard worker. By focusing her attention on what she had, her accomplishments, and what she might attain, she had less time to put herself down. Her mood improved. One day, she decided to jot down the units of approval she received from others. At the end of the day, her total was 2. If I depended on others for my emotional MDRs, I'd be depressed most of the time, she said. Caroline, like most of us, was far too dependent on what others thought of her. She let her mood be controlled by people and events that were predictably unpredictable. It is appropriate for all of us, including Caroline, to depend on others for our emotional MDRs when we are children. Children don't have the mental resources to create their own feelings of self-worth. As adults, we don't have to continue to react in the same way. Indeed, we are unwise to remain so dependent. We are encouraged to do more and more for ourselves as we continue to mature. We dress ourselves, take care of our personal needs, choose our lifestyle, learn to support ourselves. In virtually every area of life, we are taught and expected to take care of ourselves, except where our emotional well-being is concerned. Wouldn't you be insulted if at this stage of your life, someone tried to brush your teeth for you or feed you? Yet, not only are you not taught to provide for your emotional well-being, but you're even taught not to be kind to yourself. You are admonished if you say good things about yourself, especially if you share your self-satisfaction with others. Larry, an engineer with an interest in technology, was pleased with the original software he created for his computer. He took a great deal of pride in showing this to his friends. One evening, his mother took him aside and told him he was acting like a braggart. She always told me that praise only counts if it comes from someone else. She says I'm selfish, vain, and an egotist if I say anything good about myself or what I've done. Larry had worked hard at providing for his emotional MDRs. His tech ability was near the top of his list. Larry's mother didn't recognize that he was simply attempting to share his accomplishments with others and not lord it over them. We are so strongly taught not to provide for our emotional MDRs that most people find it very difficult to do so. We understand that it's healthy to use our energy for self-encouragement rather than to self-blame. Yet the lifelong repetition of self-put-downs, such as I'm stupid, I'm a jerk, or I should have known, are so ingrained and so natural that making positive statements about ourselves feels awkward. Don't become discouraged if you don't get immediate results with your emotional MDRs. Think of the units of self-put-downs you've been giving yourself daily. With lots of practice, the way you would gradually strengthen a muscle, the positive statements can catch up with, challenge, and overtake your habitual negative mental put-downs. Just as we don't know the exact number of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and other requirements we need to enjoy optimum physical health, we don't know the exact number of MDRs we need to satisfy our emotional well-being. As we increasingly create more of our emotional MDRs, however, we'll sustain our well-being more confidently. As you experiment with this idea, you'll discover the number of MDRs you need to give you fuel to carry you through the day. 10 units was Caroline's starting point. You can also start with 10 and increase the amount up to 20, 30, or as many more units daily as you need. You will know that you've created sufficient MDRs when you're able to maintain your well-being on a consistent basis and face life's challenges, both energetically and enthusiastically. Taking responsibility for our self-esteem doesn't imply that it's inappropriate to welcome and enjoy the approval of others. Approval, recognition, love, and support are worth working for. But when we take responsibility for our own emotional MDRs, what we get from others becomes a bonus rather than a necessity. And you'll find that when you're less needy, it is easier to become a lover than a love junkie. Take time each day to provide for both your physical and your emotional well-being. After you exercise or while you're eating breakfast, take a few moments to consider your emotional MDRs. You can give yourself MDRs anytime, any place, but if you become accustomed to doing so at certain times of the day, you will form the habit quickly. Make a short, positive statement to yourself, atta girl, atta boy, or use detailed imagery, such as Caroline's brass band fantasy. As you begin to feel consistently good about yourself, you'll notice that people will enjoy being with you and seek out your company more often. People are attracted to a person with an upbeat attitude. The friends and popularity everyone desires are far more likely to develop when you no longer need others to reassure you that you're okay. And you can add your new upbeat attitude to your list of emotional MDRs.
Okay, we're back in our meeting. That was an actual narration from an actual individual, a patient, who went through pretty much what was described on the film. It's not unique, but it's meant to serve as an example of the application of the 2 secret love creation skills that we gave. We're open for comments. Remember that this is being recorded. Anything we share here is available for public information, and you know the basic rules. So what do you all think, and how can we apply this to use to teach Einstein's solution to create happiness, enough, love, and peace?
I think it's just a matter of going out and doing it. As I think about it applying to me.
I think that I agree with Abe. I think some is doing it, and I actually kind of caught myself yesterday doing it, and kind of laughed to myself as I said, "Well, I should endorse myself for endorsing myself," and then thought I was turning into Don. uh, well, I am turning into Don anyway. But I'm listening to a book while I exercise called Quiet, a book about introverts and extroverts and kind of the evolution of the kind of extroverted personality traits, and how it, in our current kind of competitive capitalistic society, that may be advantageous, but how it's different and certainly is not a persona that fits everybody. And, one of the things that came up in the reading was, a way to accomplish the popularity and acceptance and happiness, that comes from communing with other people. And I know that I think I see myself mostly as an introvert, and don't know that I'm always necessarily looking for that. I think for some people, and for me partly, that is reassuring and building and supportive. But I think I don't know if that's as universal a requirement for everyone's persona or personality type. And I think trying to sell this to people who may not have that same desire or aspire for that same way of being fulfilled, I don't know how readily accepted this message might be.
I think when I kind of hear this, to me, it strikes me a lot, but not so much as how to become liked. It's kind of just how to come to be comfortable with yourself. If you naturally feel just sort of sensitive, that kind of maybe as an introvert, or just, it's not so much that I want to be popular, I just don't want to feel uncomfortable. And this is an approach of, how do you just feel more comfortable in your own skin? I think, the root here is, or, what's the desirable point of this is sort of how to become content, how to become happy, as opposed to, how do I become happy in the light of other people looking at me? This approach sort of says, well, it sort of becomes nice that other people look at you a certain way, but it's not a necessity. It's not a necessity that they look at you a certain way. That you sort of become, your own cheerleader, and don't become you sort of find more of a peace for inside yourself, independent of what's going on around you. I don't know, I kind of take it just a little bit in a different angle than, how do I work about people being happy with me, or how people look at me? It doesn't matter how the people look at me.
Then maybe because some of the conclusion, from this woman, she calls her husband, and she's going to want to hear his concerns, and she's going to be in better graces with her boss. Another way she could evolve was to find a way to feel good about herself and not be dependent on what her husband thinks of her, and not really care that her secretary quit. And, you can be happy with yourself in the same circumstance that, motivated you. There's a contradiction, it seems, if this were really a self-contained, fulfilling exercise, and it really wasn't that dependent on the outside world accepting our changes. The woman whose secretary quit, and her husband, wasn't very satisfied with her. She could come around and be okay with that. She says, I am a hot sketch. I am great, despite, maybe I got a loser for a husband, and the secretary was incompetent anyway. I don't really need this job because I'm really good. If they don't see it, then tough. Maybe I'll find another job, and but I think there's a in these examples, I think the solution or the resolution, in some ways, the message is it really shouldn't be dependent on satisfying these outside world issues that are causing some distress. It's really an inside world fix, and that seems a little contradictory to me.
I wanted to add something here. My interpretation of that story is slightly different. Basically, what you said is that the woman can deny all those issues, like she can say that my husband is a loser, or that reminds me of someone. And
would that be your wife?
this is being recorded, so she's not the one. Like that doesn't remind me of my wife. Or she can say that her secretary was not good. My interpretation is that accepting those issues and yet saying, yeah, those are issues, and uh, I need to handle them, but I will not let them depress me. Why I will not let them depress me? Because I have made a promise to myself to keep myself, happy, and I don't need external things to make me happy. My happiness comes from within. So that is another way to look. Because if we go into denial, maybe the problem is with Carolyn, and maybe she has done some mistakes. Maybe she is a very tough boss. Because she was having a bad time at her office, she was not a good boss. Her secretary did leave, but by denying that issues in life, she might create more problems in future. The other way to look at it is to just say, yes, these are problems, I will work on it, but I'll not let them depress me, because that will create more problems for me.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of Pacey's point, or a couple of the points that are brought up. I think it's the mañana problem. That, there's this assumption that I want to go forward. And, if you're not happy, there's sort of two things you can do. One is you can just say, well, I'm going to stop worrying about those things that make me unhappy, which means, who cares about that person? Or I'm okay. I don't really have to do anything. I don't have to work with her. I'll get another, I won't get such a crappy secretary. You sort of, it's possible to sort of hit a point where I'm happy with myself, but I don't take any action because I'm satisfied with where I am today. And I don't need so much to worry about having to impress other people. And there's this other part of this that says, well, I make the assumption that I have to do something to keep other people happy or to keep myself fed, so that's a given. And what I'm doing is, given that I have to do that anyway, I'm just trying to figure out a way to look at my happiness in a way that, I can survive in that, survive in that infrastructure, survive in knowing that I have to put something out, and just change the way I look at how I put something out. I know I see those too, because I think that you kind of can, if you're driving the car and the car says, in the direction is, hey, I want to be happy with where I am, and I know I'm doing my reasonable best, and if these people don't like it, I'm just going to stop worrying about it and stop doing things for them. I think there is a gap there. There's two different threads here, and there might be this built-in assumption that I have to keep pushing something out. One of the problems is you go into I'm just going to do things that are going to try to build myself up and give myself the MDRs to make myself happy. There's nothing that really necessitates that you actually do anything or produce anything that you might otherwise feel you have to do.
Good. Marilyn, were you going to say something? Then I'll go.
I was just going to say, I think the irony is that, when you stop pushing and trying to please people and feeling upset, and you usually do better with people because you're more relaxed. There was a story about the person who spent his whole life looking for the bluebird of happiness, and when he stopped looking for it and went about his business, the bluebird landed on his shoulder. And in some ways, that's what this is. When you sort of get your act together, you interact differently with people. You stop expecting them to make you feel good, or you're, I'm not quite sure how to put it, but you're more fun to be with when you're not uptight.
What I was going to say, kind of related, Marilyn, is, and what I worry about is, you know, if you're if you're never listening to what other people are saying and never really beating up on yourself at all, you know, are you really operating in reality? Meaning, I mean, I think about Trump, you know, no slam to the presidency, just the egomaniac kind of personality. If you are I'm great, I'm this, you know, and you're not listening to anyone else, you know, then you're kind of by yourself. So how do we strike that balance? You know, I don't want to beat up on myself. I want to do better. I want to chill out, you know, but I want to listen to what the faults might be, you know, so that I can make adjustments to be better.
I wanted to share one thing. I sent an email to Don. I saw this sometime back, and maybe he has received that email. This is a very beautiful flowchart on worry. And how do I, one second, let me see if I can show this to, yeah. Oh, it hasn't come to Don.
We're still looking at your beautiful faces.
So, yeah, I think this is the one. So, this is a flowchart I saw on worry sometime back. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger. Yeah, can you see this? Oh, I haven't shared the screen actually. One second, let me share the screen. Or maybe this one. Yeah. So this is really very nice. So it starts with, do you have a problem in your life? And then first of all, no. Then why worry? And if you have a problem, yes. Can you do something about it? No. Then why worry? And if you can't do something, that means you have a solution. Just try it. Why worry? So this is something that I think what Josephine and Marilyn was saying, you know, worry will anyway make it much tougher to handle that. So I have this perfect example of something that is happening in my office. There is this girl. When I joined the team, on day one, I met her, and then she told me, "Oh God, you don't know, there are so many problems in this team. You know, we have to work every day. We have to come to office and this and that." She made me like really scared. Like this is going to be a very tough team. But then I just went about the way I handle every team. I'm hyper proactive. So I learned everything that I needed to learn, and I was backing up a guy who was there for a long time and gone for a vacation. And I just did the way work I did, but it seems everybody was very busy. They were overburdened. They're all just nice people. And then on Friday, one of the bosses I was reporting to, she went to my boss and she said, "I need Sharath. When that guy comes back, I don't want him. I want him because this guy is very proactive. He keeps on, he keeps me updated on things I want." So it's not that the other guy is bad or good, or it's not that the team is bad or good. It's just that the same girl in one team is having a completely different view. And what she has done, and I keep telling her whenever she discusses with me, I keep telling her, by having these blockers in your mind, you make your work much more difficult than it is. So as soon as she gets a task to be done, because she has these blockers, oh my God, the first thing that comes to her mind is, oh my God. And then she tries to finish it very fast. But sometimes it is not easy. You have to put a lot of effort to understand what it is. And, it becomes much bigger a problem for her than what it is. And I'm still working on that. Hopefully one day I will be able to convince her. And then she's smart. At the end of the day, whatever she wants to do, she's achieving all of them. It's just that she puts a lot of extra burden on her because of her attitude towards the work. So
I think the challenge is sometimes that negative becomes the motivation. That I got all these blockers, I got moving on this right away, and that anxiety pushes you along. I think the thing is, if you figure out a way to remove that anxiety, do you also remove the motivation to push things along so fast? And that becomes the, you know, it's kind of like two parts. It's not enough just to say, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. It's like, I'm not going to worry about this anymore, but I got to figure out something else that's going to keep me motivated to move forward. If your primary motivation is the negative of, you know, someone's going to catch me with my pants down.
So I think you have hit the nail on its head, and that is precisely what this case study is about. It's not about not accomplishing what you want, but it's about changing your attitude towards how you will accomplish. It's not that Caroline did not have problems. It was not that she was perfect. It was just that by changing her attitude towards her problems, she was able to handle it in a different manner without losing her sleep. I think we should not miss this part. By denying the problems, or by saying I have no problems, or by criticizing everyone and especially criticizing yourself, we will not do any good. I remember this book I read from a great Swami Vivekananda. He wrote this small article about Newton and how he found gravity. So he said Newton was gravity did not come from outside. Gravity is a natural phenomenon. It was the theory of gravity was always there. It's just that or the gravity was always there. Newton was able to bring it out of his mind, himself. You know, it was not sitting somewhere that Newton could discover it. He brought it by his own understanding. Similarly, the different passions that we have, different emotions we have, happiness, love, sorrow, everything comes from within. The issue is when we try outside things to affect our internal emotions, and that makes life much more difficult than what it is. And I think Don has hit the nail on its head when he says, you know, if you can, like we take care of our body by MDRs, if you can take care of our mind by MDRs, then these things will not affect us. It's not that they will go away. They will just affect us less, and we will still be able to do what we want to do and still have our sleep, which is very important.
Well, if you remember in the second love creation skill, one of the issues was that blaming and worry really don't make things better. The real issue is, can we recognize that we have some errors, we're not getting what we want, and ask ourselves, how can we learn from this experience? So that's the critical issue. What Einstein told us is that we are addicted to a way of thinking that comes from our millions of years of trial and error of learning, where we had to be anticipating the dangers that we faced all the time. We inherit looking at the negative. And when we look at the negative, we inherit a tendency to be fearful of others and to strike out when we have to confront others because we're not getting satisfied. And then we blame ourselves. Animals don't do this, but we're taught to have guilt and shame to blame ourselves. So, and what Margaret Mead told us is that we create our own problems because of the way we think. And the idea that we tend to look at the negative and not the positive. So, yes, it is good that we can learn by looking at the positive, and that's the way we take responsibility for ourselves. A child doesn't have the ability to do that. It's very dependent on what her parents, how they treat them, whether they learn to love or hate themselves. But when we're an adult, we can teach ourselves. The whole point, I think, of this is that this is something, learning to love ourselves in abundance that overflows to enrich the world is a teachable experience. It is something that we're not born with. We're born with the tendency to look at the negative. This is one of the reasons why we have shooters. We just had this situation in Florida, which was one of many. As our governor said, there have been something like 20 or 30 of these incidents, and it's only a couple months have gone by. So this is just the beginning of showing that our tendency is to strike out when we're and be angry at ourselves or guilt when we don't get what we want. And this is just a little example of 28 people or whatever number of people are killed in in Sandy Hook are 17 now in Florida. And when Einstein, we realized when we had Pearl Harbor, we had a whole fleet, a whole armada coming from Japan, and they did their best with airplanes and bombs, and doing their best, they killed 2,800 people. 2,800 people. One bomb kills a couple bomb kills 100,000 people in an instant. So really the message of Einstein is, unless we teach ourselves a different way of thinking, it's only a matter of time before our negative ways of thinking are going to end our civilization. And that's part of the basis of this. So that's why I say that's so important to learn to take responsibility for ourselves. Yes, it is true that we love placebos. We love to get ourselves in the position, as Trump, may have a false reality. Most people think that this is a false reality when he says, I am the best and the most wonderful person in the world. There is a true story of two psychotic individuals who were locked in the same place in a hospital. One of them was determined that he was God, and he was happy as long as he said he was God. But this was a concern to the other person in the cell who also thought he was God, but he had a wonderful example of one-upsmanship. He turned to his roommate and he says, well, it's good that you are God, and I give you my permission to be God. So that was, both of them were happy then because they were both so powerful. But they were both psychotic. And so, we can fool ourselves and tell ourselves that, yes, I'm great and I'm wonderful. But unless we accept reality, we've got to stay in touch with reality as well. So that's my couple of cents on this issue.
But I that makes sense to me. But I wonder, does reality, demand some kind of satisfaction or some kind of submission, to please your boss or to do things you might not want to do or be uncomfortable. I mean, to me, the two psychotics in the room, what a great coexistence. Because if the world is only about to end if you think it's about to end. If you don't, if that's not part of your worldview, if you decide I'm fortunate, I'm living, it's a beautiful day, it's beautiful snow and wind outside, and I'm living in the moment, and I can't take on the problems of the universe or pollution or politics or taxes, or if you adopt I'm good and I'm living at a beautiful time and I'm just so appreciative, is that a success in some way? It certainly doesn't take us towards a global solution, but in some ways you need to adopt the paranoia that the world is about to end. You need to be a little bit upset or disturbed in order to motivate some of the things that we're talking about. So it seems like some degree of discord or discontent, is a necessity for evolution. It's not, it might not be as simple as just, I'm a hot sketch, I'm appreciative. People, can make themselves satisfied with very little.
Yeah, how long? See, the persistence is the issue, right? How long can they be satisfied? Unless and until the satisfaction, the happiness, the contentment comes from within, and someone can see the results for themselves. This is a very simple idea and probably known for a long time. You wake up in the morning, look yourself in the mirror and say, I'm a hot sketch. But how many of us actually do it? And then some of us, like me, who do it once or twice and they say, I am not a hot sketch. Look at me. I am as far from a hot sketch as there can be. But then if you do it regularly, it is so easy to love yourself. I am sure all of us find it very easy to forget. Like, it is the easiest thing to forgive yourself for the mistake. Any one of us who has done a small or big crime in our life, or a big mistake in our life, we forgive very easily ourselves. It is inherent, because body is not designed to be sad and worried for a long time, because body will give up. You will have some kind of an ailment if you are worried continuously for 5-6 months. And I have gone through this at some point in my life. uh, the body will give up. It will just you'll have some kind of a disease. You'll have fever, headache, whatever it is, because our body is not built to be sad for a long time. uh, um, the persistence is the issue, like, is the goal. It's not a short term issue like the threat that happened in uh, Florida or whatever place it was. uh, uh, that can create a short burst of people trying to look at it. But if we really want it to go a long distance and also higher up the chain, it has to be persistence, and persistence will come from within. Like, when people find it really good, not because a thing happened and I did it and it worked. Unless and until they feel the need to do it on a daily basis, it will not come.
Well, I think from an evolutionary point of view, change comes from, continued external pressures. I don't know that from a Darwinian evolution point of view that intent has ever resulted in evolution. I think we're trying something. The notion here is to change what we understand to be evolution. The model that we're talking about says you can create your own intent to evolve and behave differently. And I think historically, that's not the way species, or kind of the biological models that we've come to understand. That's not part of the
Yes.
That's not part of the model. And I wonder, I agree with the notion. I wonder if a species such as we are is capable of that. History would certainly suggest not. History suggests that we're moved by external forces, and it often takes tremendous external forces to move us, or for us to move ourselves. And the results of those forces is either extinction.
You froze.
You might sound like a naysayer, but I'm trying to kind of see this in context of systems and evolution that we know works, a model that we've kind of created or we recognize in nature. And to the degree we're trying to do something that is kind of anti-natural, I wonder how that speaks to either its success or a strategy to make it happen, because there aren't really other models we can look at that are successful with this notion of intent to change results in change, or intent to change results in evolution.
I'm going to not disagree, but offer a different just offer a different perspective.
Smart.
Well, you think about, I wake up on Sunday mornings and I listen to what I call my church shows. So I'll listen to Charles Stanley or Jeremiah, whatever. I don't even know all the names of the people, and just listen to their perspectives. And this morning story would seem to be about the devil, right? And all of them had this theme. And I just wonder if they all get together and like plan on what the sermon is going to be on TV. And it was about, so as you were talking, Pacey, it made me think, the whole story of Adam and Eve and first sin. God gave us all this wonderful, the Garden of Eden. And then the devil comes in and go, oh, in order for you guys to grow, you need a little bit of strife, right? So, and then we have this notion now that the only way we can change and we can grow is if there's some kind of countering force to make us do better. I don't think that's what, the evolved human, the ones who aspire to agape, it would tell you. So I think we can grow and develop in a true nurturing, encouraging environment, but we're not taught to do that. We had the other conversation maybe last week or the week before about we have all these wonderful words to tell people they're doing well, to put them on a pedestal. But when someone makes a mistake, how do you deliver that information to keep them encouraged and motivated and to do better the next time? So I think that's what we're talking about at the heart, Pacey. You don't need to beat up on people and create strife to make them do better. We need to think about how to be encouraging and to keep that motivation.
Yep.
The issue is, can we learn out of love rather than out of fear? You can get somebody to do something by saying you'll beat them if they don't do it. Or you can have them to do something because they realize they're contributing something to the larger system. And what I think Einstein, what Darwin has been telling us is that, yes, crises does bring about change. What's unique is that we've developed this special cerebral cortex, which is a relatively new organ that is a puzzle-solving organ. So we no longer have to act like animals, where we're born as high-level animals with an animal brain that's been functioning for a long time, but we've been given this new organ which can learn to learn. That's what makes us different. We have words, we use language, we can make our mistakes in our fantasy, in our imagination, so we don't make it in real life. And if we learn to do that, we can do what's engage in no trial learning. So that's a problem-solving approach that we can do from our new human brain. But we're biologically predetermined to be high-level animals where we teach out of fear and so on. That's the message, really. If we indeed, as I believe, we are born with the desire to be helpful to others, that we're desire to be part of the larger system of which we're a part. That's an innate quality we enjoy when we love and help others, and we do that by learning to love ourselves, but we're not capable at first. So that's a learned skill. That's the critical issue. Can we teach ourselves, find a way to teach ourselves to learn, because out of love and compassion rather than out of fear? And if we continue to guide our life out of fear, Einstein's message is, yes, then it's only a matter of time before, now that we have weapons that destroy everything, we continue to think the way we've been thinking, it's only a matter of time before we commit species suicide. There are 9 countries now that have enough bombs to end civilization as we know it. And it's only a matter of time before there's an accident or whatever, unless we teach ourselves something new. And the idea is the 7+2 formula, is my way of thinking, is the fastest, easiest, most enjoyable way we can do that. But we are resistant. I mean, you can see the resistance here. You could see the resistance in the story we heard. The woman said, it's uncomfortable for me to say I love myself. It's not true. I'm a phony when I do that. But sometimes that's the way we learn. We aspire to what we are, and then we become that person. So that's why it's such important that we learn to teach ourselves something that we haven't done before. Now I'm complete here.
One thing I am not able to understand is why are we calling it evolution in the Darwinian terms, like evolution of a species to a better version, or to a version which can handle its surrounding in a better way. I'm sure in the next 10, 15, 20 years, human beings will not be evolving into a different human being. In my view, it is self-improvement in a sense. It is understanding our weaknesses and finding some principles or some ideas on how we can improve ourselves, so we avoid those pitfalls in life. Like, for example, instead of worrying about things which are not working, we can be thankful to us. This is a statement that Dawn gave me about 8 months ago. Be thankful for good things that you have. That will make you feel happy or feel content. And then, because you are happy and content, you can handle things which are not working for you without much worry in life. So this is just a simple self-improvement. It is not an evolution. Like I'll suddenly, if I know these principles, I'll probably still be using 1% of my brain. I'll suddenly not start using 50% of my brain power. So it is not evolution in that sense. It is evolving yourself to become a better person, a better man, and trying to handle your, your issues in life in a better manner. And hopefully, with a lot of people becoming part of this movement, will become happy, and every happy person will make a few more people happy, and suddenly the world will become, or in some time, the entire world will become happy, and happy people don't use bombs. Simple as that.
I guess, Sharat, I use the evolution analogy because I think although our as Don says, our cortex and our problem-solving ability and our creative abilities have evolved, our thinking has not. I don't see us as very different than if we trained a Neanderthal or a Cro-Magnon man to talk. If we allowed that person to have new.
Pacey, you're freezing time and again.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Pace. Looks like it sounds like a bad connection.
I think your signal is faded out, Pacey. So maybe we'll come back to you if it
the notion that, and I agree. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's powerful about Einstein.
Hey, I think I have to stop him when he is speaking, because now when
Pacey, we can't hear you. Your connection's very poor.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, Pacey, so just hold on.
You probably can't hear that.
This effort has failed so many times before, in the sense, most religions are built on loving the other person and making a better world.
Yeah, I think what he has to do is he has to remove his video, and maybe
Screen is frozen, so I don't know if you hear me.
Yeah, can you stop your video? Can you stop your video? Because I think you are having bad connection. Maybe you can stop your video, then we can hear your voice properly, because we missed everything you said. Yeah, I think, can you speak now? Pacey, are you there?
Nope.
It seems like you're all frozen again. I think I have a bad connection.
Yeah. I think if you stop your video and speak, maybe it will work better, because your internet is limited. I think some issue is there. Can you stop your video and then speak, and then we can tell you whether we can hear you or not? Yes.
Can you speak now, Pacey? Okay, so apparently your connection is poor, so we'll just go on, and maybe you'll get stronger in a little bit and you'll come back.
So maybe this is an indication from God that people who support Darwin's theory have bad internet connection, and people who support Don's theory have good internet connection.
Or is this a case where somebody just shut off Pacey's mic? Somebody who disagreed with his point of view.
Yeah. Pacey, God disagrees with you.
Yeah, sometimes happens in Indian news channel like this.
Is that what you do with dissenting opinions? You just flip the switch and turn them off?
Act of God.
So what I was saying is that I think the nature of our species, we are of a certain type, and the nature of our being is this kind of destructive. We're a destructive species, and I think an example of things like this that demonstrate that is most religions are built on loving thy neighbor and doing good and becoming good people. But But we've used religion and God more than anything else to justify killing and homicides and, mass exterminations. So I think we take things that are, a species such as us, we take things that are positive and meant for good, and we turn it into something horrific. I think there's few things that have motivated more killing on the world in the world than God, or in history, that we, in the name of God. So I think there's a reality about being such as we are, that it's more than just intent or talking ourselves into being a nicer species. I think, I don't know, I'm repeating the same thing.
Can I ask you one thing? So for every Hitler, there is a Gandhi, right? So why are you just taking the bringing Hitler into the discussion? Like, I'm not saying you're bringing Hitler. I'm saying you're saying we are a destructive species, which is right. You're saying that people have misused religion to create mass murder, which is right. But despite that, it is the same species which has somehow survived and strived and reached the pinnacles of invention in every single field. Just now, Tesla sent his car to Mars. That's an amazing thing to happen. The boosters for the rocket which sent to the Mars, which was sent to the Mars, there were 3 boosters which separated, and 2 of them in perfect unison came back to Earth. This is the first time that has happened, like 2 boosters coming back. So, and then there are so many good people out there doing lot of good things in the world. So for every bad person, there is somebody who is self-motivated, who is doing good things as well. And I'm pretty sure the same evolution which somehow made the bad person also made the good person. So the nature is balancing the act, and that is why we are surviving. If you take India, for example, we had 800 years where different Muslim rulers who attacked our country and devastated our country. The same rulers who were able to convert other countries like Iran, Egypt, Iran, all of them into complete 100% Islamic countries in a matter of 30 to 50 years, could not convert India to a Islamic country in 800 years of, and then the Britishers came and they could not do anything. And somehow Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, all these different religions survived. And now, thanks to our reproductive capability, we are 1 billion strong. So the thing is, we will survive, and we can survive. What I take away from this is, how will we survive? How can we survive? Can we survive just by thinking about negative things, or can we survive by having a good night's sleep? Because we train ourselves to get away from the way all this while how we were living, and train ourselves to become more happy and loving by using certain principles in life.
You have to consider that what Darwin did really in evolution, he's essentially saying that, and what Einstein is saying, that the views we've taken about ourselves are psychotic. That, because we teach ourselves 6,000 years ago, there was an almighty figure that he created everything in one day, and he sets rules that if we don't obey his rules, we're punished eternally, and if we listen to him, we'll go to heaven and we'll be rewarded. What Darwin is really saying, this is a story we've learned, which is, in Einstein, that's kind of a psychotic story now. It was good at the time, it was the best our ancestors could do, but our religions basically, they preach love, but they don't teach love. What they preach is a tribal love. It says, if you love my tribe, then you're good people. And if you don't love our tribe, you deserve to have your head cut off. You deserve to go to hell or whatever. But the whole idea that Darwin is giving us a new story, which is saying that we are in the process of changing. And what evolution is saying to us is that to be reactive, to be warlike, and to be part of a tribe was normal and necessary behavior when we didn't know any better. And now that we have this new brain, that's creative and problem solving, we have the ability to make enough food for everybody. We have the ability to make enough clean water for everybody. We now know how to limit our reproduction, so we don't have to have 12 kids that we can't support. So the basic the new story is that our new brain is capable of solving problems, and we can deal with one another out of wisdom instead of out of hate, and instead of out of confrontation. And if we don't learn that very soon, we've got less than 10 years to get our act together. So, the issue again is now we're in a position where the new way of thinking is we can learn from our mistakes. And that's the thing to do, rather than to fight and blame and react by the so-called innate fight or flight response. And unless we do that, but it's very hard when we've been already addicted to a way of thinking that says, my way is the only right way. And we'll discuss this when we get to our word changes, when our current meme or what guides our thinking is what's good for me and my family and my tribe for here and now. That's the way we are addicted to thinking, and we don't realize it. That's the big problem. Until we can develop a newer meme, what's good for me and you, for my tribe and your tribe, that's the meaning of unconditional love as opposed to tribal love. I'm complete here.
Hey, Pacey, the only other thing I would say is what it sounds, and people often say this, that more people have died in the name of God than in any war, or something to that effect. But that's when people mix religion with the message, right? That's not the message. It's when people use the message and to control people and to justify whatever power grab they're looking to take over. If you think about what the message is, it's even about healing and turning the other cheek. Someone raised a sword, Jesus healed the guy's ear. That's not the message, right? So I wouldn't, I heard what you say, but I wouldn't confuse the message of love with how mankind and religion, to a large degree, has taken it to control and destroy people in his name.
No, I agree with you completely, and that's why I think the religious message is positive the same way this message is positive. But I think when you give that message to a being such as ourselves with the track record that we have, it gets perverted into what we have created. And so I think the message is fine, just like this message is fine. But I'm just struggling with, well, let's just will ourselves to be a different type of species. Let's, we've observed how we behave, for centuries, and let's just will ourselves to be different and manage this message differently than the similar messages that have been delivered in the past and have been enacted in incredibly destructive manners. That's not to say that there aren't positives, but I'm just saying that the notion that we're going to will ourselves to be a different species, we're going to put a similar message into our hands. I don't know any model that teaches us that works. The intention to evolve, the intention for us to become a different species, it's a new view on how we can evolve. Because I feel like I'm saying the same thing. But I wonder if that's why, the message in getting out or being enacted has been so spectacularly unsuccessful for a long time. I think our cortex has evolved, and our ability to invent machines and inventions and electric power and nuclear power, but our, whether it's our wisdom or how to behave, I'm not sure what the right word is, but I think that's evolved very little. I think we've made more and more amazing and destructive and miraculous toys, but we're still children who wield these toys. In the sense, we don't have the luxury, of acquiring wisdom the way it's usually acquired, by trial and error, because we can't blow up our world 10 times and then learn that we shouldn't do that. We don't have that. You know, there's never been a circumstance where you couldn't make the mistake. You had to learn before you make the mistake. And we're a species that's built on learning by mistakes. So,
if you say every time when you speak, if you keep on saying I am saying the same thing, then you will fail your mentor Darwin, because you're not evolving your thought process.
We're getting at the end of our hour, everyone. So make your last statements, if you will. If you have something that you think ought to be said before we end our meeting, please share it now.
Well,
I'll just remind you all that we're doomed.
No, I'm going to challenge you, Pacey. Here's what I'm going to challenge you to think about. Maybe next time we can think about this, you know, after we see the video next time. If you believe that a species only evolves in chaos, right, or in strife, how do you teach that entity to not kill itself? Right? Because what you've described to me is the only way we're going to learn that nuclear weapons don't work is if we blow ourselves up. Well, they work, right? And they kill us. So, okay, so how do you teach a species that without it killing itself? That's what we're thinking about.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Right. Okay.
And I agree with Pacey. One part I do definitely agree is like Pacey is the perfect example of the kind of challenges that Don is talking about. That in order for us to, let's hope that 1 million people do see this and then they misinterpret this. That would be a great, great accomplishment to have. But I agree that the kind of doubts that you are having, many people will have. And until and unless we accept something for what it is, and see the fruits of its like by applying it in our lives, unless and until we see that it really works, it will be tough to just take it at its face value. So maybe all of us need to practice this a little more, and hopefully all of us will benefit from it as much as Don has benefited.
Any other last comments?
Yeah, I've got just an observation that I'm seeing two motivations for the change here come about. One is we don't want to blow ourselves up, at a macro level, which I think we're talking about. And I agree, that's a hard sell to make. The other one is the motivation of adopting some of these changes is one of, at the local level. There's, what do people do to make themselves happier? And that I think is much easier, to sell if you're looking for something to sell or to indicate change. If most people, or a lot of people, are depressed or not as happy as they could be, and if you're offering something that says, "Well, I'm going to give you a way to look at the world," or offer a way of looking at things or managing your own thoughts, which you can do locally, that will improve your spirits or improve the way you're happy. That's something that people can grab onto or latch onto, I think. So, I think there sort of seems to be two themes floating around here. One is how do we make ourselves happier, which I think most people can understand and are in a position to do something with. And the other was the negative of, how do you avoid from blowing the world up, which nobody wants to do, but it almost is an insurmountable task that one person is going to try to do that. So I think that idea of approaching it from the idea of how do you make folks happy and seeing that as a road forward, that's something that is implementable. The fear, the motivation of we're going to blow the world up and you better change right away. Well, that helps, but I'm not sure that's going to be the one that's going to motivate things forward. And, from that evolutionary period, people will kind of they'll tend to do what gives them personal pleasure. And that idea that I'm doing things in adopting ways of thinking that give me personal pleasure at a local level kind of leads us to a place where we might solve that second problem. So that was my point, is complete, is there's really two motivations here. And, both of them maybe converge at some point, but you don't have to have, a solution to how to blow the species to pieces before you have some of this stuff take root.
Well, I'm going to exert my prerogative as the commentator, the facilitator, to close this with the last comment. One of my teachers, and we learn from brilliant teachers, one of my teachers is Barbara Marx Hubbard, And one of her views is that we are born Homo sapiens sapiens. That is, we're born the human that knows that it knows, that we have knowledge. We have the power of knowledge, and we are full of power. That's why we've created such power. We're going from sticks and stones to bullets, and now we have a bomb that can destroy everything. So we are the species that is known as Homo sapiens sapiens, but because we have this new brain, we have the ability to teach ourselves to make ourselves a newer species. That newer species would be called Homo, instead of Homo sapiens sapiens, Homo eros universalis, the species that loves universally and that acquires wisdom. And in order to achieve that, we're no longer being controlled by evolution. The message is we've been given, if there's an almighty or a prime mover, we've been given in evolution a new brain that enables us to solve problems, or to put it another way, to take responsibility for ourselves. And now we're at a crisis point. We're at a choice where we either learn to take responsibility for ourselves by teaching ourselves a newer way of thinking, that was Einstein's brilliant message, or we continue the way that we've been thinking for a billion years, which is competing for scarce resources. We have the ability now to teach ourselves to make enough resources to limit our population and to become, we elevate ourselves to a new species by teaching ourselves to become Homo eros universalis, the species that loves our totality, the larger system that we're a part, and not just our personal tribe, our personal religion, our personal flag, our personal political party. We've got to get beyond that, or as someone said, we are doomed. That's, what the common sense reality is. It's only a matter of time before, if we keep on the direction we are going, it's only a matter of time before someone pushes the button. And the wonderful news now is what Einstein told us is the most powerful thing that was invented in history is imagination. Why is imagination the most powerful thing? It's because in imagination, we can rehearse our solutions and our actions in our mind before we put them into the common world that we share. So we can make mistakes in our thinking, in our imagination, correct them, and then we have to proceed with no longer making a mistake. People will say the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were our mistake. So we did make a mistake, and can we learn by that? That was our trial and error experience. The next time it won't be one bomb. It'll be when the button is pushed, it'll be probably 1,000 or more bombs released at one time. And when they're released in mass, it's the end of everything as far as we know about civilization. So these are all things to think about. Thank you for sharing your ideas and allowing me my last as a commentator. If somebody else would like to be the commentator at future meetings, as I said, you're welcome to do that, but I will continue until somebody steps up and says they have something they would like to introduce as a primary topic. But for the next several meetings at any rate, next week we will start on the 7 powerful, what I call the mind-freeing, life-changing, world-saving word switches. Mind-freeing, that is, they free ourselves to think independently. Life-changing, newer way of thinking, and world-saving word switches. Only 7 simple changes that can rapidly change the way we think. So lots of love to everybody, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Okay, bye-bye all.